there is a kind of a knot that all our institutions are finding themselves in. And so the knot we're caught in is that we have to charge tuition that looks like our competitors. We look at our competition, and our competition drives our prices up. So we have to charge that tuition that looks like our competitors, and then we have to discount that tuition in order to provide access. And we have to run our programs on that discounted amount, that discounted number, and we have to pay attention to things like acceptance rate and yield rate and our debt ratios and all of those other kinds of things that are really reputational inputs for us. So as we think through the kinds of things we do with our finances, we do things sometimes with our finances that depend on our thinking about the way our institutions are contextualized in the world. So what ends up happening, we end up competing with each other, even right here in our little colleges of the Fenway, we end up competing with each other, and we end up driving up the cost of recruiting a student. We love to hate the rankings, right? Which is a lot about a lot of the way that we get our reputations. When you look at U.S. News and World Report, 25% of the U.S. News and World Report ranking is based on what is essentially reputation. So reputation, though, it drives up the good applications, because the more people know about you, the more they say, oh, I'm choosing to apply to that school because of something I know, as opposed to because of that recruiting tactic that you adopted. Reputation also creates what we often refer to as willingness to pay. You can recruit, if you have a good reputation, a student who is a higher academically qualified student, because that student is saying, I recognize something that you have that I want, and I'm actually willing to pay more for it than I would be at another institution. Reputation also creates competition, and merit awards, I think, are part of the arms race. Some of the other things I'd want to say, though, about reputation is that there are factors that can affect, for good and for ill, your reputation. So, for example, online education can have an impact on your reputation. It was hard to get people who had kind of set views about online education to adopt new views about Simmons offering that program in an online environment. The flip side of that was that we put our nursing program online, family nurse practitioner online. We went from having 150 on-campus students, which is all we can accommodate, 150. We have 2,000 nursing students online now. So other factors that can actually impact enrollment. I think we've all had the experience of knowing that if you have a compelling program that includes differentiations, special programs that are in areas of interest to the kind of student that you're trying to attract, that you're going to have a better chance of attracting those students. So you have to think about how many students are possible for your applicant pool. For us, that's women's colleges. For other people, you probably have to think about, are we going to attract non-Catholic students if we market ourselves in a certain kind of way? How do we talk about what we want at a Catholic institution? How do we talk about ourselves if we're largely focused on STEM disciplines? How do we talk about ourselves if we're really focused on children and families? How do we figure out who those folks are who might be the market for our particular institution? Then we have to think about our school goals. What do we say every single year? Okay, here are our admissions goals for this year. Our admissions goals are always going to include, right, quality, diversity, the size of the class, the tuition discount rate, the gender balance, the religious affiliation. We have so many goals that we can't possibly meet all our goals because we're spreading ourselves too thin. We have to kind of think about it and say, what goals are we really going to make some advancement on? We know that if a student comes here and takes 3 courses, particular courses, together, they crash and burn. And if they take 2 of them and then 1, they fly through and succeed. So you can't put them in calculus, chemistry, and biology all at the same time. You gotta have them do 2 of those and 1 in the second semester, and they're gonna make it. But if you pour all that on and say, well, sorry, I guess you weren't ready for college, I guess you can't succeed, I guess you can't be a doctor, then you're right. They can't succeed and they can't do what they're hoping to do because they simply can't get through the obstacles that you have really unwittingly set up for them. So thinking about those metrics for students and creating policy where you really look at that and build practices that encourage and enable students to get to that timely completion that Kurt was talking about earlier.
So why why do these schools have surpluses? I would say that they really don't have a choice. They have to have a surplus because these rating agencies that rate you would say, I'm going to downgrade you. You're no longer going to be an A, you're a B. You might even be a C school, if you don't start to have surpluses. And what does that mean when you're downgraded, right? That's a reputation as well. I mean, I know probably lots of students aren't looking at Moody's ratings, but that's in the news, and that could drive reputation. That could drive sustainability, whether or not you're going to survive. One of the things that you should do, and as a CFO, I hate doing it, is paying for marketing and consultants. You have to spend the money on marketing, your brand, your name recognition, your reputation, all of those things that I think others, maybe faculty, would seem wasteful, right? Because they're not driving the academic mission, they're not for the students that are currently here. They seem very wasteful. I do too, but I think you need to realize, and I've learned to realize, that those are very important fundings, because if we've learned anything about a tuition-driven school, is that funnel, it's getting students in to apply. Well, it doesn't just magically happen. You have to invest in it, and that's what the funding areas is. And then, part of the delay tactic would be try to avoid any major expenditure commitments until you know that you're confident about the moment. And we do that quite often at Simmons. Time you're spending appropriately, and kind of avoid them until you know for sure. So you're really managing from a timing perspective as well.